Welcome to True Vine Talks with Rachel and Linda. It's been a minute. We trying to recuperate from our being super busy this past couple of months, but we're glad to be here with Miss Marlene Smith. Um, Marlene has so nicely agreed to start working with True Vine, and she'll be offering some sessions on evenings and weekends, maybe some days in the summer. And so we're just feeling grateful that she decided to join us because we need help. Right, Rachel?
Yes, we do.
We have an overflow. Um, Marlene has received her master's degree in counseling in both mental health and school counseling. She's currently working at POCA, and that's POCA High School, right, Marlene?
Elementary.
Elementary as a school counselor.
Yes.
What is that like for you?
Different. I actually started out I worked for Marshall and I worked with college students, and then through my internship I did high school and then I did elementary, and it ended up being a great fit for me. I just love the kids, and I feel like it's proactive, that we can really work with them and kind of head off some of the problems that you have later in life.
Yeah, that's so true. That is very true. Has counseling kind of always been your passion, or wake up one day and
Actually, it's something that I went back to school as an adult learner, and it was just kind of a natural fit through the progression of life. So it's something that I'm glad I went back, and it's worked out well.
yeah. Have you always found yourself like being a listener and being a helper, even as a young girl, or just how did that?
Yes, I've always been someone who is a good listener, and I've always actually been a counselor, and I didn't know it, for free. So it works.
Yeah. Is that kind of what prompted you to go back to school for this career?
Why I went back to school was because my kids were getting older. They didn't need me as much. And I'm like, wow, I've got to find something that I can do, because I'm like someone who likes to be busy. So I thought, well, this is something that I can do even later in life as I get older. And people are always changing. It's always interesting. Every day is different. Every person is different. So I love it. I think it's perfect for me.
Awesome.
Rachel and I said awesome at the same time.
Oh, you guys are kismet.
Yeah, we're yin yang. So I guess you're telling us what prompted you to get in the field. So a little broader question, and Rachel, you chime in anytime, is what do you think personally in your experience causes mental health struggles in life? What are some?
I think that there is a myriad of factors that causes mental health issues. Some, just to name a few, like brain chemistry, genetics, trauma, and stress. So I think a lot of today in our society, I think stress is really a big contributor of what happens to people. And then they develop anxiety, and then it's just kind of like a snowball effect. People don't get help when they need it, and it just gets worse. But the good news is that we can pretty much, everything is reversible, and people can usually get the help they need and get on the track that they need to be for life.
Yeah, that's so true. Stress causes a lot of, like you said, anxiety and prolonged exposure to negative interactions with others.
Yes.
Can cause depression. And sometimes people are unaware that their interactions with those closest to them are triggering stress response, the fight or flight. And that dumps the cortisol into the body and leaves you feeling ugh.
Yes, and tired. A lot of people don't even realize, they think that some of the things they have are health problems, but they're really just the body's way of reacting to stress and depression.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure you see this a lot in the elementary level when children are growing up in very chaotic households and they're not really old enough or developmentally capable of realizing I'm stressed out. My house is really chaotic. They develop a lot of fears and a lot of anxiety, and that's kind of their baseline. So then when they get older, they don't even necessarily realize oh, I'm a very anxious person, because they're so accustomed to just living that way.
Yes. And then I think there's an ACEs study. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. That's adverse childhood experiences. A lot of the things that on those markers, they come out as like ADHD, they come out as like oppositional defiant disorder, a lot of those things. And we're treating it in the school system as disciplinary when it's really the child's reaction to their environment. And it really needs to be like a mental health issue. So, I mean, that's kind of like a gap that we have in school. So as counselors on the outside, we can really attribute to that and make it better for kids. And like awareness is a big important component of that.
Yeah, good point, Rachel. I don't think when people come to therapy, they realize that they're having chaos, that their environment is chaotic. I think that's sort of their baseline of functioning, the norm. And so they're a little bit like, wow, I didn't think about how when we fight, our kid is experiencing some anxiety around that fight, or, when we're, spewing out hatred towards each other, how that's affecting the kid's brain and their heart and their mind. And that's so important, but you can only get in there as much as you can, Marlene. I'm sure you offer a lot of hope and kindness towards the kids, and I know it's limited. Yeah, Rachel, shake your head. She was in the school counseling as well. So,
well, my hope is that the ACEs study did also prove that to change that environment for a child, for them to be successful, they need one strong adult relationship. So that is my hope in the school system, that I can be that in the school for the children. So
I'm sure that is you. Yeah. The voice that's different in their lives, right? That nurturing, caring person that shows them the light.
Yes.
I'm glad they have you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And people don't think that you being there, a counselor or a coach or a teacher. I had a teacher and a coach. Yeah, they showed me the way. I didn't have that in my father figure. So I got to see that not everyone interacts this way. And being a strong, wiser other, as in the emotionally focused family therapy, even if they have someone else showing them the way, that's good. So I'm so glad that you model that for them, Marlene.
Yeah, another thing that I think is important that we keep saying that maybe listeners would be interested in is that your normal is your normal. So you don't know what normal is because this is how you grew up. This might be your marriage. This might be, your childhood, but, that might be something that we want to look at in the future is what is, the standard. I mean, is it normal for people to scream at you or you to be locked in your room or this or that or the other? What is the thing that is the standard that you should be looking for and know if something's wrong?
Excellent point.
Ooh, that's a good podcast, Rachel.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Cool. Rachel, would you like to, would you like the next question?
Sure, yeah. So what is your approach to counseling, Marlene? What theories or techniques do you like to use?
I like to use different things. It depends on the person. As far as my approach to individual counseling, the first thing that I think is really important, and I think that this becomes like an obstacle in counseling, is you have to have a rapport with the person. You have to develop a relationship. And I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, you're a counselor. I did counseling. It didn't work for me." Because you know what? Sometimes it's not the right person. It's not that counseling doesn't work, but maybe you weren't with the right person, and you can go to different people. And a lot of people don't realize that maybe it's just not the right fit. So, I mean, that's one particular thing. But as far as theories, different ones for different people, like I said, like in the school system, I use solution focused brief therapy, and that's something that's based on the present. And then it has like this component where you say, if I had a magic wand, they call it the magic question, what would it look like if everything was changing perfect? And that works really well with kids. But cognitive behavioral therapy, REBT, which is rational emotive behavior therapy. I like the growth mindset, which isn't really a theory, but it's kind of like a concept. And then we're learning about emotional focus theory and therapy in our practice. So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, I love that magic wand question.
Yes,
you're right.
It works. It works for kids. It works for adults. I use it at home with my own kids. I use it with my husband. It really does work. And it really puts you in perspective, I think.
Yeah. Helps people realize what it is they want. Because
Yes.
sometimes when you ask that, what do you want? What can I help you with? I don't know.
Yeah. And then another important part of that too is another thing that I love to use with people is our circle of control. Like, what can we control? A lot of people, I'll say, well, if I had the magic wand, what would it be? And they'll say, if he does this, if she does that. Well, we can't do that. We have to only concentrate on things we can control. You can control your reaction, you can control how you think, but you can't control the other person. And that really turns the wheels when you ask people those questions about what is it that you can control, because we can't change other people. Sometimes we can't even change our environment. So I think that's another important thing to look at.
Yeah, very. And I love what you mentioned about people having a bad experience and thinking that that applies to all counseling and all therapists.
Yes.
Because I hear that a lot too.
Yeah.
People don't realize that the number one predictor of success in therapy is your relationship with the counselor.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not what theory they use or what techniques they use or the level of education they have. It's whether you click,
Yes.
whether
And
you
then,
like them and trust them.
and I think that a lot of people think we have the answers. We don't. They have the answers within themselves. We're kind of like a guide. We work together. And I think people have kind of like the wrong idea about it. They've been taught the wrong thing. So
Yeah.
I think that once people realize how it works and that, their role in it, I think that helps too.
Oh, that's an important thing. I'm glad you said that, Marlene. We aren't advice givers. We aren't, uh, we just don't, we're not Yoda. Is that the right word, Yoda?
Yeah, Yoda's good.
I like Yoda. And they have what's within, they have the answers within, and we are just there to use language to draw that out, prompt their inner need, their unmet need, their longings, their fears. What would make you feel better? What is your longing in this relationship? um, what do you need? Yeah, I like that, because we just draw it out, and Rachel said it too. If they feel safe and they feel connected to you, they'll share that stuff. If they don't, they're not going to. So that's important. Good answers, ladies. Yes. Um, what type of model have you seen work most effectively with your kids? Is it the solution focused or something else?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's solution focused. Like in the school setting, we're really not supposed to go deep into theory, but as a counselor, I mean, I think that you're rooted in that. I mean, you kind of have to use it. So solution focus works great because of our time frame. Like we don't have like hours to work with people. We have like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, because they need to be in class learning like their academics. But I think cognitive behavioral therapy and REBT, because you're disputing like irrational thoughts and you're replacing negative thoughts with positive thoughts. But I mean, I think choice theory, which is Glasser, is like it works really well because kids don't understand sometimes that they have choices. And then I try to teach them that you always have a choice. You always have a choice. You know what I mean? Like my mom is in jail. They told me I'm going to be in jail. And I was like, no, of course not. You have that choice. You have the choice to be an addict or not. If you never try drugs, you're never going to be an addict. That's a choice. So I think choice theory is another one that works really well. But that's a lot. It's one that a lot of people don't really use, but I think that it works great with kids.
Oh yeah. And does choice theory and motivational interviewing, are they similar, Rachel? Is that, or Marlene, is that?
I have heard that motivational interviewing works great with addiction and school children, but that's something that I want to learn, but I don't know a lot about. But I think that you're probably on the right track.
Yeah. You had MI too, Rachel? I can't remember if you had MI in school.
We covered it. Yeah. I'm with Marlene. It's something that I'd like to learn more in depth about.
Yeah, I think KPCC, they offered some training in that. So just remind me, I'll find out. Because I took a whole course in it, and it's again using language to draw out what the person values. What's your inner value? What do you care about most? Well, I want to be a doctor one day. Oh, wow. So what does that look like right now? And so they would be like, well, maybe I should study this more or take a science class and when I get in high school. And, it's drawing out that person's inner value, the thing they care about the most, and helping them blossom into that goal. It's a good theory. I like motivational interviewing. Of course, EFT, emotionally focused therapy, that's more around your attachment cues, what's your unmet need with this person. And you gotta have somebody in life coaching you on to be that person you want to be, that inner core, the values. So MI kind of goes along with that. They all kind of go together.
Yeah, the thing I've heard about motivational interviewing is that really forces people to take ownership. And that's one of the components that I really, really, really like about that, and why I would like to get into it. Because I think a lot of people think that they are victims, and when we take ownership is when we're empowered. So I think that's a strong point of that.
Yeah. What are some things that you're really passionate about when it comes to mental health that you wish more people knew or understood?
I feel like a lot of people are afraid to delve into that. They're afraid that they're going to open a can of worms, and I just think it's better to just find what it is that is ailing you, for lack of better words, and just do it in small steps, because people look at the whole staircase and don't realize that it's just small baby steps. That's how we learn everything. We start on one step and we tackle that and we go on to the next step, and then eventually you make it to the top. There's no, it's not a timed race. It's all in your own time. I think that's important.
So important. Yeah, because I've heard that too. People are kind of naturally afraid of, if I bring this up, if I open this bottle that I've shoved everything down into, how much is it going to hurt, and will it ever stop?
Yes.
Yeah.
We see that in couples therapy a lot when we bring up rocky moments in the marriage from 10 years ago. It does open up all these emotions, negative emotions, and we're having to sort through that. And it's a slow process. People can be in marriage counseling for years, and that's okay. So, good point.
I once heard that I don't remember where I heard this or what, but they were like, you can bury a toxic waste. Okay. You can bury it, but eventually it's going to come up. And that's the same thing with your feelings and emotions. You can bury them deep, but somewhere, somehow it's going to come out. So like what you're talking about, people in marriage therapy, those triggers, we have to learn to coping skills with the triggers, and then we can get past it, and then we're ready for it. So I think empowerment is a really big component that is important in therapy.
Yeah. I used to describe it to kids like a balloon, like you can only fit so much air into it before it's going to burst.
Or like pop, like
Yeah.
the visual of like shaking, you're angry, shaking up the pop. What if I take the lid off? And they're like, no, don't do that. They know. I'm like, then you know what it's like to get angry. And we need to learn how to not shake the bottle and get it all upset. Okay. We need to learn how to take the cap and let it off a little bit of air. So even if it's shaken up, then when we take it off, it won't explode.
Yeah. I love visuals.
I do too.
They're so helpful.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So it's important. Sorry, Linda, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Sure. I think what we're talking about, it's important for people to learn coping skills that they can use, between sessions when they're talking about stuff, right? And like you said, they're taking those baby steps, right? But we only see them for, maybe 15 minutes a week as a school counselor, an hour a week in the mental health, community. So what are some, self-care techniques that you like to teach people for in between when stuff comes up and you're not there?
Okay, so whenever I have my students or clients, I always like to go over what is the thing that you want to work on today. Okay, and then we will come back and we will meet, and then I'm going to give you some techniques and I want you to tell me if they work. And I always tell people it's important that you report back to me because I use this stuff with other people. And if it's not something that works, then I don't want to continue using it. And then if kids feel like they're doing you a favor, and if you ask someone for a favor, they're likely to do it. So they almost always come back and say, I tried this and it worked or it didn't. But I like deep breathing because there's like studies that have proven, like research, that it resets the body. So a deep breath in and a deep breath out, usually 3 times will reset or until you need it. And then as far as like an anger component, I like to tell people count to 10 before you say anything, or write an email and say all the horrible stuff that you want to say and wait 24 hours, read it, and then see if you want to send it. One of the most simple things that I use at home and with clients is ask yourself this question when you're going to do something. Is it going to be helpful or is it going to be hurtful? If it's going to be helpful, go ahead and do it. If it's going to be hurtful, maybe you shouldn't do it. So those are some techniques that I like to use, just basic stuff, but there's different things for different problems that people have, and we can be creative, and even the client might have suggestions.
Yeah. What about for yourself in your own daily life? Are there
I do use all those. For me, I'm like feeling bad, I like to do things that make me feel better. So I'm a big reader. I like to spend time with my family and friends. I like to go be outside. I like to go for a car ride with all the windows down. It just depends. Depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
Yeah, reading is a great escape. I highly recommend that as a self-care technique. I don't think to share that with people. That's a good idea. Reading. Preferably fantasy. You don't really want to be doing educational reading when you're trying to relax. I don't know. They say that makes the brain spin.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So we've all been going through this pandemic and we're kind of coming out of that. Marlene, what has this pandemic been like for you personally and for your kids at school, trying to navigate this change?
For me, I'm like, I just tell myself, it could be worse. You know what I mean? It could be worse. So that's how I kind of got through it. Like, you know what? We have to make these small concessions. We can do this. We can do that. We can still do these things, kind of focusing on the positive. As far as my students that I saw when they came back to school, the pandemic, how that played out was a lot of anxiety, because school age kids, they're used to routine. And so this kind of like put them in a place where we've never been. There was a loss of social interaction, in every aspect of their life. There was like this looming giant virus. So we had just kind of had to work on, it's okay to be afraid, but when you're locked in that fear, that's when we're having problems. So we need to work through it. And here's some strategies to do that. So face your fears and kind of work through them. That's kind of how it worked. So the longer we went and we had routine, the better things got. And then the kids, they seem to come out of it, but still we have work to do.
Yeah, the pandemic was challenging for them, and their daily routines were messed up. Like you said, there was this looming thing that no one knew if people didn't know if they were going to survive. So I think that's important to process with clients and kids. Be like, man, that was really scary. You might have lost somebody, or you did lose someone. What was, and there's a lot of grief happening, and we couldn't do anything. I mean, you think about how few activities we could do. They were even shutting down the parks. I don't know if you guys remember, but Barbersville Park was shut down, and you couldn't even go walk in the park. And everyone was stuck at home, and kids were stuck at home with their parents. And that was not a good thing. I mean, 24/7 like that, it was a real challenge. And so, helping people integrate back in, and like Rachel and I be returning somewhat to the office, it's even, there's a sense of strangeness or anxiousness around that. Do you guys think that? Or
yes. Like, and now that we're like, when I was out of town over the weekend and we were in Kentucky and Ohio, and they have different protocols than us, and no one was wearing a mask, and it was weird. It was weird to see people not wear masks now. So, I mean, but I think that you pointed out something really important that people didn't really latch onto, and that was the grief component. Like, people are under the misconception that grief is just because someone died, but grief can be because you're mourning the loss of your graduation, because you're mourning the loss of your senior baseball season. A lot of people lost a lot, and that feeling that they felt was grief.
You're so right. Yeah, any loss, you can feel grief.
Mhm.
And validating that for them. Like, yeah, it sucked that you didn't have a graduation. Yeah. What would you like to do to celebrate you graduating? Well, now you can do whatever you want to do. Let's celebrate now your 2020 graduation, because my niece didn't get to have one. I mean, there were a lot of people that didn't get to have a celebration or even weddings. So, yeah, that's a valid point. Marlene, are there other things you would like our listeners to know about you as you start your new venture with Truvine? Is there something that stands out about you or something that you would like them to know if they would like to get in contact with you and see you for therapy?
I am just excited about the opportunity to work with different age groups. I've worked with kids, I've worked with adolescents, I've worked with high school students, I've worked with older people, I've worked with all age groups, and I just like to get to know the person and work through their journeys together. So I'm committed to hanging in there and doing the work that needs to be done to help people. So I'm just sincere about it and love what I do. So I hope I get to meet people and work with them.
Awesome. Thank you, Marlene. Any other thoughts, questions, or feelings anyone would like to share, Miss Rachel?
Marlene, I'm happy that you're joining the Truvine team. It was a pleasure meeting you today, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm excited to be here.
All right. Thank you, guys. And if you want to contact us, you can visit our website, www.truvinewv.com. That's a mouthful. But anyways, you guys can reach us. We're also on Facebook. Rachel uploads the podcast so nicely to YouTube. It's on iTunes. What else are we on, Rachel? I don't know.
Stitcher.
So yeah, we will be trying to do a few more podcasts in the future with others and different topics. So feel free to listen to those. And we thank you for joining us here at Truvine Talks.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.